Hello, welcome to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. That's our radio station. You are listening to newstreamingnetwork.com, home of Going Bold and Going Solo. This show is called Going Solo, GoodReads, Author's Corner, Meet the Author. And this is one of my favorite shows because I so love the authors. They're so creative and inspirational, and you just can't get anything better. Those of you that don't know me, I am Cece Shatz. I'm the Doyenne of Relationship Building. I am a divorce, dating, and a life coach. I'm also the president of Going Solo Network and the owner here of our new streaming network. So, want to bring our author up. We're going to talk about You Come First with Katie Coffman. Let's bring her up. Hey, Katie.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it is great having you. Now, you are fondly referred to as the Lady Top Dog. I love that. You are a multi-best-selling author. You are a business owner, wife, a mother, and an influencer. You're on the mission to really create an impact for being selfish. And you know, we want to say that. We want to say that you're being selfish, right? Because your book is actually called You Selfish Bitch. And the reality is I love this because I think sometimes we do need to think a little bit more about ourselves. So tell us about your journey, because you really you had to overcome some obstacles in your life, which is one of the reasons why you wrote the book. So share with us a little bit about yourself, your journey on understanding that sometimes we do need to dig deep, right? We do need to think about ourselves a little bit. And so, not that we want to be bitchy, but we do want to really put ourselves first. And so, tell us a little bit about your journey.
So thank you so much. When I first started this out, I had no intention of initially writing a book. I've always wanted to write one. But when I sat down and I was that person who I never asked myself really what I wanted anymore. You know, Cece, everything that I did in my life was because it was somebody else's dream. It was important to somebody else. It was because it was on my schedule because someone else felt it was supposed to be there. Imagine being in your life vehicle, but always sitting in the passenger seat. That's where I was. I was in my vehicle, but I was always letting somebody else come in and drive me somewhere else. Wasn't really opposed to it necessarily, generally knew where I was going and what I was doing, but I felt like I wasn't in control of what I really wanted. And so when I faced myself with that question at an event that I had gone to, I remember staring at a piece of paper for a very long time. It was blank, Cece. I couldn't come up with anything that I wanted to write down on that piece of paper because I just hadn't asked the question to myself in a long time. What does Katie want? And that was a really low point for me because it's hard to imagine that like you're living this life and you have nothing about your life is actually for you. It's about everything else and everyone else except for you. And so I sat with that and I made myself finish that. I didn't finish it that day, but I remember going home and I'm like, that was just a hard feeling to cope with. And so I went home. I'm like, I'm going to finish this. And I sat down. I'm like, that was my stipulation. I had to write a list of at least 10 things that I wanted to do for me. No one else, no ties. Like, I want to do this for my kid or I want to do this for my husband. No, like, what do I want to do for myself? And so writing a book, for example, was one of those. Well, and then in that kind of sparked a little bit of a process where I realized like we get to places in our life and sometimes don't think twice on how we got there. But there comes a lot of accountability that you have to take for that, regardless of stuff happening to us, because life's not here to pick us up and give us high fives. Like it's there to shove us down. And it's our responsibility and obligation to get ourselves back up. And so it started this wheel turning. I'm like, okay, I got to figure out how in the hell I got to a place where I did the math. I was spending 1% of my life on myself. So that came out to like 2 hours a week. I think I was denoting 2 hours a week to myself, which out of the time that you're allotted every single week, that was 1%. And let me tell you, Miss Cece, that was never the 1% club I ever intended to be a part of. And so it sparked this. I'm like, okay, how did I get here? And what am I going to need to do to fix that? Because I wasn't necessarily unhappy, but I wasn't happy.
Mhm.
And we lose out on that idea and that mentality of like dreaming of whatever you want to do. You know, those kids, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? We don't ask ourselves that as we continue to grow into adulthood. And I started asking myself those questions again and truly believing that I could do anything that I set my mind to. But there was going to be a lot of unraveling necessary of the things that kind of got piled on throughout the years that I was going to have to kind of like backtrack and fix before I could truly move forward. And I like to use this for example. Every time I knew that I needed to make a step, it always felt like something preceded that. So like you can't put new priorities on a schedule, for example, that's already full.
Mhm.
You can't prioritize if you don't know what you want in your life. And then
That's
on
so
top of that,
true.
you won't prioritize you until you actually feel like you're worthy of that too. So that's a whole other game as well. So it's like
Right.
every single time I'm like, I need to do this, I
Mhm.
found myself backtracking. And so I ended up started writing about it. I was like, I wrote on that list that I wanted to write a book. I felt like there was no way in hell that I was the only one dealing with this problem, on realizing that everybody else controlled my life except for me. And so I started writing about the steps that I would have to take and that I was realizing that I would need to do in order to become this selfish bitch that I wanted to become,
Mhm.
to take control of my life back.
Yeah, so many, because we do a lot, with the relationship loss. And so many, as they're stepping forward into their new life of being single, they find themselves and they ask the very same thing is, what makes me tick? What is it that I really like? What brings me happiness? Because I'm so used to living into a life of serving and helping other people, men and women. So this is not just a woman's type of situation, because a lot of guys have told me as they're stepping through, starting to reclaim their life, they were trying to make their spouses happy. They were trying to provide for them. They were doing all the things, and they really weren't thinking about themselves. And vice versa, women were doing the same thing. They were, trying to take care of their families, take care of their children, take care of their husband, doing all the things that they thought made everybody else happy, but they didn't realize what was making them happy. And so we have to get our joy back. And how do we do that? What are the steps on being able to understand what makes us tick? And I think journaling is a very good thing. I think that is something that will help you to be able to start opening up to new ideas. And often I tell individuals, think about like like before were together, when you were a child, when like you started to dream, right? And think about what your future would hold for you. Start bringing yourself back to that again. And many go into the arts and do various different things that they had wanted to do when they were a kid, and then life got in the way, and they weren't able to do it. So I love the idea that you have to focus on yourself. And we want to call it being selfish, but I think internally we have to do that. In order for us to grow as individuals, individually grow and be the person that we want to be, and attract the person that we want in our lives of all different types, whether you're in a relationship or not, you would still attract people into your life, right? Whether they're problem people or whatever, but you want to attract, that higher vibration. And so, yeah, you got to start understanding yourself. I love what you said about making a list of what you wanted to. You wrote down 10 things, right? And I bet that took you a while, didn't it?
It did. Like I said, it was like very, it was difficult for me to realize that I got to the point where I couldn't make a list. Like that should be something, in my opinion, like outside looking in, like that's just simple. Like, oh, like you should know what you want in life, right? Everybody should know what they want in life. But when you really get down to making sure it's not connected to someone else or something else, um, I felt like I was sitting there naked, to be completely honest with you. I did. Like I just felt exposed, that I'm like, oh my goodness, I have no idea. I genuinely have no idea what I want to do with my life. And here I thought I had everything figured out and I have nothing figured out. And so when I wrote down that list, it was, like I said, eye opening, but at the same point, very devastating. And I find it really ironic that we live in a society that preaches like self-help and self-love almost every direction you look. But it's hilarious that the second, because I went through a period where when I made that list, I'm like, well, I can't do that because it'll make this person mad, or I can't do this because, like, you immediately start thinking of all the limitations that other people, things, or life circumstances or situations have put on you, that it damn near makes it impossible to dream anymore. And I felt that guilt and that shame when I started making this list. And I'm like, why the hell am I guilting and shaming myself for wanting to live life the way I want to live it? As long as my responsibilities are handled, there's no reason for it. And I just found it ironic that, like I said, life has a way of like preaching like all this self-help and this self-love. But at what point then did selfish become such a derogatory or negative term? You know, like being selfish, you need to be selfish in order to truly present the best you that you have to offer to the people who deserve you. And you're selfish, I feel like, when you no longer offer a benefit to someone or something else. I think that's when it gets kind of triggered over into you being selfish. But what's wrong with that? I think the definition was, what was the definition? That you were doing something like for the sole purpose of doing it for yourself. Like there's not anything in there that states that like you put yourself over the greater good and everybody, you know, this catastrophic event happened because you did this for yourself. No, it's doing something with the intent on solely doing it for yourself. And there's nothing wrong with that. And there's no guilt and shame that should coincide with people putting themselves first, because the second I started doing it, it was very ironic that I started being the best me possible. And I was able to be, I filled my cup up first. And now instead of trying to fill everybody else around me from an empty cup, I was then therefore filling them up with an already full cup, and I was overflowing. And I feel like I had more impact and could help other people more when I helped myself first.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. And, you know, again, we want to think about selfish as being a bad thing, but it truly isn't when you're focusing on, you know, you're not harming someone else. You're just focusing on trying to be the best that you can be and do what's good for you. Can you share with us some of the things that might have been on that list that you made?
Yeah, so I wrote a book. So I did that. I wanted to travel more. So I've gone to Texas and Florida and Montana. Don't get me down the road on Montana, because that's my special place. I'll talk all day about Montana, but it was the first time I was around mountains and it was breathtaking. I've been to North Carolina. So I've been to Hawaii. So I've been able to mark a lot more traveling off. I wanted to do speaking. So, you know, I'm already in the process of check marking that off. And then another thing is, I remember going to a couple events where I thought I genuinely believed that it would be really cool to get on stage and to get in front of a lot of people. And I'm going to be a little bit vulnerable here, but I remember specifically telling myself at an event that I went to down in Texas that I would love to be on stage, but I didn't have a story people would be willing to listen to. I said that to myself.
Yeah,
so I joke with people now, because I said, be careful what you wish for.
Yes.
Because throughout this process and journey in writing this book, which are included in my book as half chapters, because life doesn't work in the perfect little chapters we'd like them to often. But I was actually diagnosed with epilepsy. And then a few months after that, I ended up getting shot driving down the highway. Very fortunate that, you know, and those were two very life altering things that, you know, here I am trying to become this selfish bitch, and then epilepsy happens. And so you can't drive, you get put on medication indefinitely for like the first time. You're trying to figure out what that's going to do. So here I am trying to be this independent, strong woman and do things for myself. And now I can't even drive myself somewhere. So it was like crazy fighting through that. I was finally releasing the chains I had put on myself my whole life. And then it was like, somebody's like, okay, here you go. They're back. Like, work through it again. And then I did worked through that. I'm still on that medication indefinitely, but I've made sure to make a lot of changes in my life and delegate things that were, have high stress, high anxiety, make sure that I'm staying in a better place at all times. And then, like I said, I got shot. I was hit. They debunked it as a random act of gang initiation violence, and got hit through and through my arm, and then was stuck with a non-functional dominant hand for about 6 months prior to having surgery. All while I was making this book. Mm-hmm. And so when I wrote this book, I got done, and I remember going back to that event where I'm like, I don't have a story that people are going to be willing to listen to. And I'm like, all right, funny. I got it. I got the message. So.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. And it is amazing how things do happen in our lives that we just have no idea that they're going to happen, and then how we get through them, and we get to the other side of it. And we look back on it and think, wow. But it's amazing. And I do really believe that we all, both men and women, we do need to think about ourselves. We do need to think about our whole, core and understand that, we are an individual, and that we do need to focus on what makes us happy and what we've just got a short time here on this earth, and so why not live it to the fullest of what you truly want to do, and be happy, not be, surrounded by individuals that would bring you down or tell you that you can't be what you truly want to be. So, yeah, so I think, break the mold and be a little selfish. Get out there and do what it is that you are really destined to do, and you definitely are destined to do what you're doing. So it's wonderful to hear that you're stepping forward and doing some public speaking and doing some different things, that stepping out of the box, so to speak, right?
Yes. Get out from behind the curtain. It feels great.
Yeah, it's amazing. It is amazing. Well, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, let's talk a little bit about your future, where you're going to be going, what you're going to be doing. And let's try to inspire those that are in the realm of trying to figure out, what is their next step in life, and how can they make a purpose or really fill out, their dreams. And so let's try to give them some tips on how they can get going. And like one thing, I love the list that you made, write down 10 things that you would like to do in your life, it's kind of like a bucket list, right? Some of the things that you like to accomplish and experience. And it can be anything as small as, reading a book by yourself, that kind of thing without interruption or something like that. It can be something, but you want to be able to experience life as you want it, right? Live the world that you want to live. So it is wonderful having you on. So everyone, her book is called You Selfish Bitch. You can find it right on Amazon. Again, her name is Katie Coffman. That's Katie Coffman, Coffman. So you can find it right there on Amazon. So I want you to rush out and get that book. We're talking really about you come first today. And that's what is important, to really make yourself the one you love, the one that you are proud of being. And so, so you selfish bitch is not a bad thing. So we're going to talk with Katie when we come back. So you guys stick around. You're listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. This is the Going Solo GoodReads Corner, our author's corner, where we meet the author in person on the newstreamingnetwork.com, home of Going Bold and Going Solo. Well, I'm Cece Shatz, and we'll be right back. Well, welcome back. You guys are listening to Going Solo, GoodReads, Author's Corner, Meet the Author. We're talking to an author right here today. I am Cece Shatz. I'm the Doyenne of Relationship Building. You're listening to WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network. That is our radio station. We are live internet streaming station. Also, we have the newsstreamingnetwork.com, which is our TV and our podcasting platform. You can find us on Roku, pretty much all the podcasting outlets. And then also we're streaming live on Bond TV and Kick TV. So thank you all for listening to us. We want to just do a shout out to Roku. I want to thank them so much for listening to us. We closed out last year at 6 million, and my heart is just overwhelmed by it. So I want to thank you so much by that. But today we're talking with a wonderful author. We're talking with Cece Coffman. Cece Coffman has written a wonderful book, and we're talking about that today. We're talking about, so I had a little trouble with that. We're talking about, she's the author of Your Selfish Bitch. That's the name of the book, Your Selfish Bitch. You can find it right on Amazon. So you go Amazon.com and get the book. But we're talking about really you come first. That's really what we're talking about. Make yourself number one. Do the things that you truly love doing. Put your essence forward. And it's not saying, leave people behind. It's not saying be mean to people. It's not saying you don't want to love on your partner or your children or anything like that. It's just saying that you as an individual have the right to be happy and do the things that you love to do and that you want to do. And so Cece has really overcome some obstacles in her life. She's gone through it, and she realizes on the other side of it, she needs to put herself first. And so if you missed the first part of the show, go back and listen to it because it's very touching, her story and how she came about doing what she did. She also gives us a really good tip on where we can begin, start focusing on ourselves. So Cece, let's let you take over here. So any other suggestions that you might have for individuals that are saying to themselves, how do I start this? How do I really start beginning to understand who I am and what I like, what makes me tick?
So I want to hit on something very important, and it's probably the biggest question I get asked all the time is we need to get over what other people think. Plain and simple. I want to make that very bold statement because I would have to say that in my book, it's probably the longest chapter, but it was probably the most difficult for me. When you're not nowhere near selfish if you've already lived life up to this point where other people were figuring out what you did with your schedule and what you did with your life, which means for the longest time, whether you want to admit it or not yet, you've let other people control how your life is turning out. And you're not going to be selfish or do anything for you until you get the wrong people out and the right people in. And that was a very, very long, extensive, big process for me. Mm-hmm. I remember trying to figure out and looking at who I surrounded myself with. And I was like, unfortunately, ultimately throughout that process, I ended up kicking out about 95% of the people that was in my life at that time. And so add that to the getting shot and the epilepsy diagnosis. And now you're going to kick out everybody that was there to help you. You get lonely and you have this fear of loneliness really quickly because, by nature, we genuinely like being around people. At least most people that I've met. I know where there's a few hermits out there that prefer like themselves in their house, and that's fine. But we seek that companionship by naturally. And I was so afraid of disappointing everyone around me with the decisions that I was making, because you get to this point when you finally realize all these things that you want to do with your life. But it's one of those, like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't want to travel and but then do Susie, Sally, and Joe's tasks that they need you to do. Like there's a give and take. There's always sacrifice. I call it selfish sacrifice. Are you willing to sacrifice your life for everyone and everything around you? Or are you willing to sacrifice some people and some things to live the life that you want? Mm-hmm. And that has to be in the decision process. And I remember when I started kicking people out, some people didn't have any conversations. Cece, I knew that they were kind of there to be quote unquote friends and kind of kill time, pass time, whatever. There were some that you start really realizing like how one-sided it is and that it's not reciprocated. I came from a place of I had really nasty people around me. I had people that I would take my shirt off my back time and time again for, that not only would never return that shirt, but then it got to a point where they started asking for the skin off my back. And you can't be the best version of you when the people that are around you are constantly tearing you down like that. And so when I started this process, I'm like, the first thing I thought of was like, Cece, I want to build a wall. I want to build this big, massive wall that's going to make sure nobody can climb over it, never hurt me again. Because you want to be protective, but then you start realizing how lonely that wall is going to make you feel.
Yeah.
Not everybody's a bad person that doesn't belong around you, but that doesn't mean that they're meant to be a part of your journey based on where you're going in your life. And if that future self that you're envisioning and that person that you want to be, for me, that selfish boss bitch that I was going after, there were some people that in order to go there, I would have had to carry them on my back, and I was not willing to do that anymore. If you're coming with me, or, not everybody is meant to go where you're going, and that's okay. But yeah. I remember the process of deciding who was going to stay and who wasn't, because there were people in my innermost circle that should have never even surpassed my outermost. But I had to take accountability for that. And so calling up somebody, hey, like, you've been basically really close to me, but you have absolutely none of the traits that are going to get me where I'm going. So, like, those phone calls were difficult. I'm talking friends and family. Nobody was an exception. And when I did that, it was difficult. But it was also empowering. Like, you have to have these conversations with people that, like, I had no more room left in my life for friends. And it's funny, and excuse me on this, but I'm going to be very blunt. Family means nothing when you're always expected to make an exception for their behavior, when the whole point of family is supposed to be meant for them. Those are supposed to be the people that would never do to you what you're now having to make an exception for. Your roles and your titles don't mean anything. Your actions do. And so there was a lot of family that I no longer speak to or talk to because it just didn't align with where I was going. And people need to understand that. So like we don't have friends or family anymore. I have allies. And what I mean by that is when you work and operate in a space where you have allies, they keep you accountable. They know your mission and vision. They support that mission and vision. And in the slight chance they ever get in the way of that, they would understand. So those are the people that I have built up around me. Everybody who is around me or in my life is there with purpose and intent. Everything is reciprocated. And I think that is so important to get down pat first before you can truly start putting yourself first. Because at that point, if you get everybody and everything out of your way, the only thing at that point that can get in your way is yourself.
Right. And that's hard enough.
Yes, it is. It is absolutely hard.
Yeah, that I totally agree. I mean, I can relate to everything you're saying. I mean, the same thing. I have family members that they don't support me, and and I still love them. You have to love them where they're at, but they're better to be not with me. They're better to be at a distance. You can just love them at a distance. And same thing with, friends and things like that. I mean, I feel like you have to, if someone loves you for who you are, they'll encourage you to step out of the box. They'll encourage you to do something that even you might be frightened of doing, right? And so you want to be able to have, those that, behind you that are going to be there for you. And so I totally agree with you, what you're saying. And it's like when I started this career of doing what I'm doing now, I never in a million years dreamt that I would even be doing this, and you can really see the ones that support you in it and the ones that don't support you. And they're the ones that make you feel insecure about yourself. But the reality is, they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know you, because if they really knew the core of who you are, they would say you're capable of doing this and so much more, right? They would say, Katie, you can write 1,000,000 books, you're creative enough to write all the books that you want to write, so yeah, I mean, go for it. Let's make it happen. Let's do it. And those are the kind of people you need in your corner, the ones that truly understand you for the way you are. And I don't think that's being selfish. I think that's being, it's living life with intent, You have a purpose. We all have a purpose in our lives. I feel personally, we're put on this earth for a reason, right? And we don't know what the heck that reason is as we go through our lives. We're thinking like, what the heck, why did you, Katie, have to drive down the street and be the one to get shot in the arm? I mean, for heaven's sake. But I guess, maybe God wanted you to wake up and say, hey, look what you can do. Look what you can accomplish here now. We're going to give you downtime so you can think about it. So it's amazing, it's amazing how your lives will take a twist and turns, but you don't need anybody in your life that isn't going to support you as you would support them. And that's the way. And you want people to help you stretch, to stretch into those things. I mean, there's a lot of things that I do that again, I would have never dreamt that I would have possibly been doing today, and love what I do. Absolutely love what I do. And so, not quite figuring out what it is that I do, but I do love doing it. But it's great. But I love that you have a vision. And so, share with us a little bit about your vision of what you want to, move forward in life. Because I think those out there that are listening today, we've shared with you some steps that you can do, but really it's your core that you have to grab a hold of and then move forward. You have to start dreaming and start having a vision for your life, and don't hold back. Even if you've got a flicker of what that is, don't hold back on it. Don't let anybody poo-poo your ideas. Write them down like Katie did on her 10. And now she's just checking them off one by one. I love that. Yeah. So share with us what you're going to be doing next.
So I am very passionate, obviously, about this journey. I mean, within 1 year, I went from being diagnosed with epilepsy, getting shot, undergoing surgery, to now being a #1 international best-selling author. I wrote in an anthology as well. I'm getting speaking opportunities. My life is a lot more simple, and that is like music to my ears. Like I'm evidence of the change that I wrote about, and I was able to hopefully inspire other people to take the step-by-step process, because it's not easy. Everything in life that's worth it is never going to be easy, but it is definitely worth it. And when I read this and started realizing that there's a lot of other people, because this isn't just like you go through it one time and you're done. I've probably already gone through the steps in my book 5 times, 6 times. This is something that gets repeated because life circumstances change, life situations happen, change happens, life throws you on your ass, and you're expected to get back up no matter what. And to keep that drive, well, the only way that you can keep that drive is by having that forward looking mentality. Cece, if you're stuck in the past, that's where you're going to stay, is stuck. And so to keep that forward looking vision and to keep moving there, I'm like, this is what people need, but it's sometimes hard to start. Like, where do I get started? What do I do? And I felt like that was a question I asked myself a lot. So upcoming, I wanted to really turn this book into a platform, an accountability platform. So Top Dog Allies is what I will be launching in 2025. It will be a group of people who want to go through a step-by-step program that I can help them transform their lives in a year. I'm going to turn it into, I like the idea that it's a start and a stop. If people stick around, then people stick around, Cece, and that's just a testament of how great the program is going to be. But I want it to be like, look, give me 1 year, run through these steps with me, and let me show you how you can take back control of your own life, because I did it, and so can everybody else. And so the Top Dog Allies will be a platform where you get to meet with other people. We have activities. There are even some in my book that people can do on themselves, for themselves as well. But the exact things that I went through, the thought process, the shedding of old weight, deciding what new I wanted in my life, like that's an entire process, and it takes time. But I call my book my accountability partner, because throughout that entire process, it was my book and my desire to write a book that helped me stay accountable to staying on that process. But not everybody has that. And so to be able to provide that one key element I felt like I was missing, which was having other people hold me accountable to finishing that journey and doing what was best for me, is something I would love to provide with other people. And that's the platform I'm building right now.
I'm excited about that. So when you get that ready in 25, I hope you'll come back and share that with us, because I know a lot of individuals, as they're stepping forward into their transition of being single, right? And they're really trying to figure it out, what it is that, what's going to make them happy as they move forward, and try to really reestablish themselves as an individual. And because I've often said, we're not who we were yesterday, nor are we who we're going to be stepping into, right? And so we want to be able to move forward with that, with grace and understanding, as we continue on, of what's good for us as an individual. And I don't feel that when we think about being selfish, I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think sometimes we do need to stop for a minute and figure it out, what it is that we do want to do in life, and how we want to show up, right? How we want to be. And I think that that's very important. So I love the book. I think it's a great idea. The number one step is to go out and get the book, You Selfish Bitch. And guys, I want you to buy that book, because I think you need to also think about yourself. As you're moving forward into from a relationship loss, you do need to take time out and think about yourself a little bit, and how you can reestablish yourself as an individual moving forward, being the man that you want to be. So don't think this is simply for women, because I do think this is also for men. And so we want to be able to just be the best person we can be. We want to show up for ourselves, and know that we're walking the walk. So yeah, I love that, and I like the shedding. The shedding. Would you say shedding your skin, or shedding that? I think we do have to sometimes shed, our past, right? Because so often, as we're moving forward from a relationship loss, we want to, we don't want to take that baggage with us. So there's elements of that we need to learn from and grow, and there's elements we just need to shed, you know because we can't take responsibility of everything, because when we do that, we can't change what's happened in the past. So therefore we can only learn from what we've experienced. But yeah, I think you've got a lot coming, and I'm looking forward to some of the public speaking that you're going to be doing. So anyone that's interested, Katie is more than happy to do some public speaking, and do some different platforms like that. Now, is your platform going to be, internet based? Do you think, or you know?
Yeah, I'm looking to do it internet based. I want to have it set up where there's going to be multiple opportunities for people to come into a discussion every single week. There's accountability for that. I want people to show up and make it personal though. So there's we're looking to have limitations to the group sizes, because I don't need a massive group. I want people to feel comfortable. I want them to get personal. I want people to be like, hey, did you have that talk with your grandma yesterday that you were supposed to? And when they say no, they know they're going to be walking into that meeting with that question getting ready to be asked to them, because we need accountability. I mean, it's so much easier to go to the gym even when you have somebody at your meeting there to work out with.
Right.
Same concept here. And so that's what I'm building. And but it'll be small, it'll be personal, but everybody will be able to have access to it. It'll be an online based program.
Yeah, that's great. Maybe even in the future, you can have little summits where people can get together, because I know that when you do things like that in a smaller group, you get to know each other, and that you do want to meet in person and stuff. So, yeah, that would be kind of, I could see that in the future for you, that you might have some small little summits that you can, workshops that you can do together, would be kind of fun. But yeah,
Yes.
I mean, it's just, again, it's the same thing. It's like whenever we go through some obstacles, we go through different things in our lives, we think the world is ending or whatever, but it's really not. It's just beginning for us. And if we want to step forward and think about ourselves, and like you said, you come first. That was our title of our show today. You come first. And then the book, of course, you've written is You Selfish Bitch. So again, that you can buy that on Amazon.com. So, any last words you want to share with our audience today?
Um, Honestly, just do you. For anybody that's out there listening right now, you have to get out of your own damn way and just start doing the damn thing. I can't stress that enough. We've, like I said, forgot to to keep dreaming as we grew up into adulthood, and the only person that needs to take responsibility and accountability for that is you. So get back on the horse, get back to what it is that you want in life, because as cliche and cheesy as it may sound, you do truly only have one, and we're not promised tomorrow. So you might as well get out of life what you want, not what everybody thinks that you want.
Right, right. Very, very well said. Very well said. Well, I want to thank you so much for being on the show today. I think it's great. Everyone, please run out to Amazon.com and buy her book, You Selfish Bitch. I think it's both for men and women. Focus on yourself a little bit. You do come first. And so we want to make sure that you do understand that. You guys are listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network on the new streaming network.com. We are the home of Going Bold and Going Solo. This show is called Going Solo, GoodReads, Author's Corner, Meet the Author. We've met wonderful author Cece Coffman. Her name is spelled, if you need it for looking for Amazon, it's Katie, Katie, Coffman, Coffman. And again, the book is You Selfish Bitch. So you want to definitely go ahead and get that book. But yeah, it's wonderful here to meet you, Katie, and very inspirational indeed. You certainly are. And so I want to thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
It's great having you. Well, I'm Cece Shatz. I'm the Doyenne of Relationships, and I want to thank you so much for joining us here today. I'll catch you next time. Bye for now.